Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you try to solve your life through thinking, the thinking itself becomes the problem? You sit down, perhaps in the evening, perhaps in those quiet moments just before sleep, and instead of finding rest, you find a courtroom, a relentless, exhausting courtroom inside your own mind. The prosecutor is there, the defense attorney is there, witnesses are called, evidence is presented, and you, somewhere in the middle of all of it, are expected to be the judge, except the trial never ends. There is no verdict. There is no recess. There's only more thinking, more analyzing, more rehearsing conversations that already happened, more preparing for catastrophes that may never come. And the strangest part of all of this, the part that nobody ever really stops to examine, is that you believe you're the one doing the thinking. You believe that voice, that relentless, opinionated, worried, nostalgic, fearful voice inside your head is you, that it speaks for you, that it is you. But what if it isn't? What if the most liberating discovery available to any human being is simply this: you are not your thoughts, you never were. And the moment you truly see that, not just intellectually understand it, but actually see it with the same clarity with which you see your own hand in front of your face, everything changes. Not because your life circumstances change, not because your problems disappear, but because you're no longer trapped inside the story your mind has been telling about those circumstances and those problems. This is what we are going to explore together, not as a concept, not as a philosophy to be admired from a distance, but as something you can actually feel right now in this very moment. Let us begin with something honest, something perhaps uncomfortable. Most human beings live in a state of continuous, low-grade mental suffering. Not the dramatic suffering of acute crisis, though that comes too, but a quieter, more persistent kind, a background hum of dissatisfaction, a sense that something is slightly wrong, that life is not quite what it should be, that you're not quite who you should be, that somewhere, somehow, something is missing. You may have achieved things. You may have relationships, work, a home, a life that looks from the outside quite reasonable, and yet there's this nagging feeling, this restlessness, this inability to simply be at peace with what is. And so the mind offers its solution, which is more thinking, more planning, more worrying, more analyzing. If I can just figure this out, the mind says, then I will be at peace. If I can just understand what went wrong in the past, I can prevent it from happening again. If I can just anticipate every possible future scenario, I can protect myself from pain. But here's what the mind never tells you. Here's the secret it keeps very carefully hidden. The thinking is not solving the problem. The thinking is the problem, not because thinking itself is wrong. The human mind is a remarkable instrument. It can design bridges, compose symphonies, solve equations, communicate across vast distances, used for its proper purpose, which is to navigate the practical world, to plan, to create, to solve specific concrete problems. The mind is extraordinary. But the mind for most people is not being used for its proper purpose. It is running continuously, compulsively, without any direction from you. It is commenting on everything, judging everything, comparing everything, worrying about everything, and you're not directing this process. You're being carried along by it like a leaf caught in a fast-moving river, spinning and tumbling with no ability to stop, to rest, to simply be still. And the most important question you will ever ask yourself is not what should I do with my life, or how can I find happiness, or what is my purpose. The most important question is far simpler and far more radical than any of those. Who is it that is aware of all this thinking? Sit with that for a moment, because there is something extraordinary hidden inside that question. When you notice that your mind is busy, when you observe that you are thinking, there must be something that is doing the noticing. There must be an awareness that is separate from the thought itself. Otherwise, you could not see the thought, you could not step back and say, there's a thought happening. If you were completely identical to the thought, you would have no perspective on it. You would be entirely inside it with no ability to observe it, but you can observe it. You are observing it right now as you listen to these words and notice the responses arising in your own mind. That capacity for observation, that quiet, alert awareness that watches the thoughts without being the thoughts, that is your true nature. That is what the ancient traditions have called consciousness or presence or the witness or simply being. And here's why this matters so profoundly, that awareness, that watching presence, is always at peace. It is never anxious, it is never in conflict. It does not carry the weight of the past or the fear of the future. It simply is. It is the stillness that is always there underneath the noise of the mind. Like the depth of the ocean, which remains perfectly still even when the surface is churned by storms. You're not the storm, you are the ocean. But to realize this, to actually live from this understanding rather than merely thinking about it, we need to look very carefully at how the mind creates its prison, because it is a very sophisticated prison. And the most clever thing about it is that it convinces you there are no walls. Let us talk about time, because almost all of the mind's suffering is rooted in a fundamental confusion about time. The mind lives in time. It is, in a very real sense, made of time. It is constructed from memories of the past and projections into the future. And it has convinced you very thoroughly that the past and the future are where life actually happens, that the present moment is just a brief, inconsequential passage between what was and what will be. Think about how you actually spend your mental energy on an average day. How much of your thinking is about things that have already happened, replaying conversations, revisiting decisions, feeling regret, shame, resentment, nostalgia, constructing alternate versions of events where things went differently, and how much of your thinking is about things that have not yet happened, worrying, planning, anticipating, dreading, hoping, fantasizing. And how much of your thinking is actually about right now, about this precise, immediate living moment? For most people, the honest answer is very little, almost none. And this is the source of an enormous amount of unnecessary suffering, because the past, however real it felt when it was happening, no longer exists. It is gone. It lives only as a pattern of electrochemical signals in your brain, interpreted and reinterpreted endlessly by your mind, colored by your current emotional state, reshaped each time you recall it. What you call your memory of the past is not a recording. It is a story that your mind is continuously editing, revising and replaying, and the future. The future is pure imagination. It does not exist yet. It is a mental projection, a simulation, a guess. And the mind, being what it is, tends to make its guesses in the direction of its fears. It takes the painful patterns of the past and projects them forward, creating a future that looks very much like a continuation of everything that has gone wrong. And so you're trapped between a past that no longer exists and a future that does not yet exist, living almost entirely in a mental world that is, in the most literal sense, not real. While the only thing that is ever actually real, the only dimension of existence where life is actually happening, the only place where you can ever actually do anything, feel anything, experience anything, is here. Now, not 5 minutes ago, not tomorrow morning now. This is not a spiritual platitude. This is not a comforting idea to make you feel better. This is a statement of pure, observable fact. The present moment is the only moment that exists. Everything else is memory or imagination. And when you truly understand this, not just as a thought, but as a lived recognition, the mind's grip begins to loosen. Because what is the mind actually doing when it obsesses over the past? It is trying to use the past to construct an identity, to give you a solid, defined sense of who you are. And what is it doing when it obsesses over the future? It is projecting that identity forward, trying to secure it, protect it, enhance it. The mind is always in the business of maintaining and defending what we might call the self-story, the narrative of me. This is the ego. Now, the word ego has been used in many different ways, and it carries a lot of baggage. Let us be very clear about what we mean by it here. The ego is not your personality. It is not your preferences, your sense of humor, your love of music or silence or morning coffee. Those things are fine. The ego, as we are using the word, is a deeply conditioned mental pattern that insists on defining you as a separate, fixed, defended self, a self that needs to be right, a self that needs to be special, a self that needs to be safe from the judgment of others, a self that carries its history like a badge and a wound simultaneously. The ego is the storyteller, and the story it tells is always about you, always about your past, your problems, your relationships, your achievements, your failures, your fears. It is an endlessly self-referential loop, and it is exhausting. But here's the thing about the ego that is perhaps the most important and the most surprising. The ego does not just suffer from its problems. It is in a very strange way attached to them. It feeds on them. It needs them because without its problems, without its story of suffering and struggle and injustice and longing, the ego would have no substance. It would dissolve. And it experiences that possibility of dissolution as a kind of death. This is why you may have noticed, perhaps in yourself or in people around you, a strange resistance to actually feeling better. A subtle pulling back from genuine peace, a tendency to return to old grievances even after you thought you had let them go. A quiet preference for familiar suffering over unfamiliar freedom. This is not a character flaw. This is not something wrong with you. This is the ego operating exactly as it always does, because the ego's survival depends on maintaining the story. And the story requires conflict. It requires a villain, a victim, a struggle, a hope. Without those elements, there is no story. Without the story, there is no ego. And the ego will do almost anything to prevent that. Eckhart Tolle gave this phenomenon a very precise and useful name. He called it the pain body. The pain body is the accumulated emotional residue of your past suffering. Every experience of grief, fear, shame, rejection, trauma that was not fully felt and released at the time it happened left behind an energetic residue. And over years, over decades, that residue accumulates into a kind of semi-autonomous emotional entity that lives within you, not as a metaphor, but as something you can actually feel, a heaviness in the chest, a tightening in the stomach, a sudden wave of irrational sadness or anger that seems disproportionate to what triggered it. The pain body is not you, but it is very good at pretending to be you. When it becomes active, which it does periodically, triggered by certain situations, certain words, certain tones of voice, it floods your thinking with its own emotional coloring. Suddenly, you're not just slightly annoyed, you're furious. Suddenly, you're not just a little sad, you're in despair. And the thoughts that arise in those moments are not neutral, objective observations about reality. They are the pain body's thoughts. They are dark, catastrophic, accusatory, self-pitying, and they feel absolutely, undeniably true. This is one of the most important things you can ever understand about your own inner life. When you are in the grip of the pain body, you cannot trust your thoughts. Not because you are weak or broken, but because the instrument of perception has been temporarily hijacked by accumulated emotional pain. The lens through which you are seeing the world is not clear. It is stained with old suffering. And the solution is not to fight those thoughts, not to argue with them or try to replace them with positive thoughts or distract yourself from them. The solution is something far simpler and far more powerful. You witness them, you step back just slightly into that quiet awareness we spoke of earlier, and you observe what is happening. You say internally, without judgment, there is the pain body, there is this feeling of rage or sadness or fear. I can feel it in my body, I can see the thoughts it is generating. And I'm the one who is noticing all of this. I'm not this, I'm the awareness in which this is arising, this single shift, this movement from being the emotion to observing the emotion is the beginning of freedom. Not because the emotion immediately disappears, it may not, but it loses its power to completely possess you. There is a small but crucial space between you and the storm, and in that space, there is peace. There is the possibility of a different response. Let us go deeper into this practice of witnessing, because it is the heart of everything we are exploring. Most people, when they hear the idea of observing their thoughts, assume it means something like trying very hard not to think, gritting your teeth and forcing the mind to be quiet, treating thoughts as enemies to be defeated. But this is not it at all. In fact, this approach only creates more mental noise, because now you have the original thoughts plus the thoughts about how you should not be having those thoughts plus the frustration of failing to stop them. The practice of witnessing is entirely different. It is effortless. It is the most natural thing in the world, because it is simply what you already are when you're not pretending to be something else. Here's a simple way to understand it. Imagine you're sitting by a busy road. Cars are passing constantly, loud, fast, unpredictable. Now, if you were to run out into the road and try to stop each car, you would be exhausted, overwhelmed, and probably hurt. But if you simply sit by the roadside and watch the cars pass, you're perfectly at peace. The cars are still there, the noise is still there, but you're not in the road, you are the observer. Your thoughts are the cars. You do not need to stop them, you do not need to engage with every one of them. You do not need to climb inside each one and be carried wherever it is going. You can simply sit by the roadside of your own awareness and watch them pass. And the extraordinary thing that happens when you do this, when you genuinely step into the role of the witness, is that the traffic begins to slow down by itself. Not because you forced it to, but because most of the mind's compulsive thinking is fueled by your engagement with it. When you stop feeding it your attention, when you stop climbing into every car that passes, the mind naturally begins to settle. Gaps appear between thoughts, and in those gaps, however brief, you touch something that is always there but usually hidden by the noise. Silence, stillness, presence. And in that stillness, you realize something that the mind could never have told you, because it is beyond the mind's capacity to understand. You realize that you're already whole, already complete, already at peace at the deepest level of your being, not as an achievement, not as a reward for doing something correctly, but as your fundamental nature, as what you actually are when the noise stops. This is what the spiritual traditions have been pointing toward for thousands of years, not a belief to be accepted, not a practice to be perfected, not a state to be achieved through years of effort. Simply the recognition of what is already here, what has always been here, what will always be here, the silent, spacious, aware presence that you are. Now, I want to address something that the mind will almost certainly be doing right now, because the mind, when it hears these ideas, has a very predictable response. It says, yes, but my problems are real. Yes, but my anxiety is real. Yes, but what about the things I actually need to deal with? Yes, but this sounds very nice in theory, but how does it help me with my actual life? And these are fair questions. So let us address them directly. Nothing we have explored here denies the reality of your circumstances. Your challenges are real. Your relationships, your work, your health, your finances, these things are real and they require attention. The point is not to float away into some detached spiritual cloud and pretend that none of it matters. The point is something far more practical than that. When you are trapped inside the mind's compulsive thinking, when you're being swept along by the current of anxiety and rumination and regret, you're actually less capable of dealing effectively with your life, not more. Because you're not seeing clearly, you're seeing everything through the filter of your accumulated fears and stories and past experiences. You're reacting from old patterns rather than responding freshly to what is actually in front of you. But when you step into presence, when you anchor yourself in the now, even briefly, something shifts. Your perception clarifies, your responses become more intelligent, more creative, more genuinely effective. You stop repeating the same patterns because you're no longer being driven by the same unconscious compulsions. You begin to act from a place of awareness rather than react from a place of fear. This is not passive, this is not resignation. Presence is not the absence of action. It is the foundation of right action. Action that arises from clarity rather than confusion. Action that comes from genuine understanding rather than panicked reaction. Think of it this way. If you're trying to read a map while running in a panic, you will misread it. You will take wrong turns. You will exhaust yourself. But if you stop, breathe, and actually look at the map with clear eyes, you can see exactly where you are and exactly what needs to be done. Presence is that stopping, that clarity, that ability to see what is actually here rather than what your frightened mind tells you is here. And now I want to speak about something that many people find both the most challenging and the most liberating aspect of this entire teaching, the question of acceptance. Because when we talk about being present, about surrendering to the now, the mind immediately interprets this as giving up, as passivity, as accepting things that should not be accepted, and it resists fear. But acceptance, in the sense we are using it, does not mean that you approve of everything that is happening. It does not mean that you stop working to change things that need to be changed. It does not mean that you pretend pain is not pain, or that injustice is not injustice. Acceptance means something far more precise and far more powerful. It means that you stop adding the additional layer of suffering that comes from resisting what is already here. It means that you acknowledge reality as it actually is in this moment, rather than fighting a battle against what cannot be changed, which is the simple fact that this is how things are right now. There is a profound difference between the pain of a difficult situation and the suffering that comes from refusing to accept that the situation is difficult. The pain may be unavoidable. The suffering, in many cases, is optional. A simple example, you receive difficult news. Perhaps something has gone wrong. There's an immediate, natural human pain in that, a contraction, a grief. That is real, and it deserves to be felt fully. But then the mind begins its work. This should not be happening. Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? What will happen next? How will I cope? And suddenly you are not just experiencing the pain of the situation. You are experiencing the pain of the situation plus the mental anguish of resisting it, fighting it, arguing with it, trying to make it not be what it is. Acceptance says, this is what is here right now. I do not need to like it. I do not need to pretend it is fine, but I can stop fighting the fact of it. I can meet this moment as it actually is rather than as I wish it were. And from that meeting, from that clear-eyed acknowledgement of what is, I can respond wisely. I can take whatever action is actually possible and helpful, and I can release what is not mine to carry. This is the surrender that the spiritual traditions speak of. Not defeat, not passivity, but the profound, courageous willingness to stop fighting reality and start meeting it. And here's something remarkable that many people discover when they begin to practice this. When you stop resisting a difficult emotion, when you stop trying to push it away or drown it out or analyze it into submission, and instead simply allow it to be there, to be felt fully in the body without the mental commentary, something unexpected happens. the emotion moves, it shifts, it releases, because emotions in their natural state are not meant to be permanent. They are meant to flow through you like weather moving through a landscape. It is only when we resist them, when we freeze them in place with our mental commentary and our stories about them, that they become stuck, that they calcify into the pain body. When you simply feel what is here to be felt without labeling it, without telling a story about it, without judging yourself for having it, the energy moves, and in its wake there's often a surprising lightness, a spaciousness, a sense of having been cleaned out from the inside. This is not a technique to be applied mechanically. It is an invitation to a different relationship with your own inner life. A relationship based not on control and resistance, but on presence and allowing. Let us talk now about what this actually looks and feels like in ordinary everyday life. Because it's easy to speak about presence in abstract terms. But how does it actually manifest in the texture of a normal day? You wake up in the morning, and immediately, before you have even fully opened your eyes, the mind begins the list of things to do, the worry about the meeting, the memory of the argument from yesterday, the calculation of how much time you have before you need to be somewhere. And just like that, you're gone, carried away on the current of mental activity before the day has even properly begun. What would it mean to pause in that moment, not to stop the thoughts, but to notice them, to feel the weight of the blanket, to hear the quality of the silence or the sounds outside, to take one conscious breath, to arrive for just a moment in the actual experience of being awake, being here, being alive. This is not a grand spiritual achievement. It is a tiny, ordinary moment of presence, but those moments accumulate, and over time they begin to change the texture of your experience, not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, like light beginning to filter into a room that has been dark for a long time. Or you are in a conversation and the other person says something that triggers the pain body. You feel the familiar contraction, the rush of reactive emotion, the words forming in your mind, the defense, the counterattack, the withdrawal. And instead of being completely swept away by that reaction, you notice it, you feel it in your body. You take one breath. And from that tiny space, you respond rather than react. Perhaps you say what you would have said anyway, perhaps you say something different, but it comes from a different place, a more conscious place, a place where you are present rather than possessed. These are not dramatic transformations, they are small moments of waking up, and they are in their quiet way revolutionary. Because consciousness is not something you achieve once and possess forever. It is something you return to again and again and again. The mind will wander. The ego will reassert itself. The pain body will activate. These things are not failures. They are simply the nature of the conditioned human mind. What matters is not that you maintain perfect presence every moment of every day. What matters is that you notice when you have been pulled away and you return gently, without self-judgment, without drama. You simply return, and each time you return, the returning becomes a little more natural, a little more effortless. The gap between being lost and finding yourself again grows a little smaller, and gradually, slowly, the center of gravity of your life begins to shift from the mind to the awareness behind the mind, from the story to the storyteller, from the noise to the silence beneath the noise. There is something else I want to address because it comes up for almost everyone who begins to explore these ideas, and that is the question of identity. If I'm not my thoughts, the mind asks, then who am I? If I let go of my story, my history, my personality, my opinions, my plans, my ambitions, what is left? If I stop being the person I've always believed myself to be, is there anything there at all? And this question, when the ego asks it, is full of fear, because the ego experiences the dissolution of the self-story as annihilation, as nothingness, as a kind of death. But this is one of the great misunderstandings about awakening. What dissolves is not you, What dissolves is the false self, the constructed, defended, story-based identity that you have been mistaking for you. And what remains, what is revealed, when that constructed identity becomes transparent, is not nothing, it is everything. It is the vast, open, aware presence that was always there, behind and beneath all the thinking and the striving and the defending. It is like a room that has been so cluttered with furniture that you could not see the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and then gradually the furniture is moved out, and what is revealed is not emptiness, it is space. Beautiful, clean, open space. Space in which anything is possible. Space in which life can actually move and breathe and be what it is. Your personality does not disappear. Your preferences do not disappear. Your love for the people in your life does not disappear, but they are no longer weighted down by the ego's constant need to defend and maintain and enhance the self-story. They become lighter, more genuine, more freely expressed, because they are no longer in service of the ego's agenda. They are simply what they are, natural expressions of the life that is moving through you. And your relationships, the relationships that have perhaps been most tangled and most painful, begin to change. Not necessarily because the other people change, though sometimes they do, but because you change. Because you stop needing other people to complete you, to validate you, to make you feel worthy or safe or loved. Because you begin to find within yourself, in that quiet presence, a sense of wholeness that no relationship could ever provide and that no relationship can ever take away. This does not make you cold or distant. It makes you more genuinely loving, because love that arises from wholeness is very different from love that arises from need. Love from wholeness gives freely, without expectation, without the constant anxious monitoring of whether you are receiving enough in return. It is the kind of love that actually nourishes rather than depletes. Now, I want to speak about something that is perhaps the most subtle and the most important aspect of this entire teaching, and that is the question of what you're actually looking for, because beneath all the seeking, beneath all the striving, beneath all the planning and the worrying and the hoping, there is a deep, inarticulate longing, a longing for something that the mind cannot quite name, something that feels like it is just out of reach, something that you sense you once had, or perhaps have glimpsed in rare moments and that you have been trying to find again ever since. The mind tells you that what you're looking for is something in the future, a better version of your life, a different set of circumstances, more love, more success, more security, more freedom. And so you keep moving toward the horizon, and the horizon keeps moving away, and the longing remains. But what if what you're looking for is not in the future at all? What if it is not in any set of circumstances, however ideal? What if it is not something you need to acquire or achieve or become? What if it is here, right now, in this moment? In the simple, immediate, undeniable fact of your own existence, in the awareness that is reading these words, in the breath that is moving through your body right now, in the sounds that are reaching your ears, in the aliveness that you are beneath all the stories about who you are. The peace you're looking for is not a destination. It is not a reward for getting your life right. It is the nature of awareness itself. It is what you are when you're not adding anything to what you are. And the extraordinary paradox of this teaching is that the very thing you have been seeking so desperately, the very thing the mind has been telling you is just over the next horizon, is the one thing you can never actually leave. You are always here, you're always now. Even in your most distracted, most anxious, most lost moments, the awareness that is your deepest nature is present. It has never been absent, it cannot be absent, because it is what you are. The only question is whether you are conscious of it, whether you are resting in it, whether you are living from it rather than from the mind's endless commentary about it. And this recognition, this simple direct, immediate recognition does not require years of meditation. It does not require a perfect life or a perfect mind. It does not require you to become someone different from who you are. It requires only one thing, and it is the simplest and most difficult thing in the world. It requires you to stop just for a moment, to stop running toward the next thing, to stop rehearsing the past, to stop planning the future, to stop and to be here, fully here, in this breath, in this moment, in this awareness, and to notice that in that stopping, in that simple, unadorned being here, there is something that the mind can never manufacture and can never take away. There's a quiet joy, a sense of rightness, a feeling of being finally at home, not because anything has been fixed, not because anything has been achieved, but because you have stopped for this moment, adding the weight of the mind stories to the simple, extraordinary fact of being alive. This is the now. This is what all the great spiritual teachers have been pointing toward. Not a concept, not a belief, not a practice to be perfected, but this aliveness, this awareness, this moment, and it is always here, waiting, not impatiently, because patience implies time, and this has nothing to do with time. Simply here, simply available, simply what you are underneath everything you think you are. There will be moments, perhaps many moments, when you forget this, when the mind reasserts itself and you're swept back into the current of thought, when the pain body activates and the world seems dark and heavy and too much, when the ego story feels absolutely real and absolutely urgent and absolutely you. In those moments, do not fight. Do not judge yourself for having forgotten. Do not add another layer of suffering by suffering about your suffering. Simply remember, simply return. Simply take one breath and notice, with whatever small degree of awareness is available to you in that moment, that you are here, that there is awareness. That beneath the storm, the depth of the ocean is still perfectly, absolutely, unconditionally still, and that stillness is you. It has always been you. It will always be you. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to deserve it. You do not need to understand it fully before you can rest in it. You only need to stop for this one moment, running away from it. The door has never been locked. You have only been too busy looking for the key to notice that it was already open. Come in, rest here. You have been traveling for a very long time and you're already home.